You are not here by chance. You did not stumble across these words through idle scrolling or by accident of an algorithm. Something deeper is at work, a current beneath the surface of ordinary life, pulling you toward this exact moment. You are seeing this because your reality is on the edge of reconfiguration. A threshold is opening, and what awaits on the other side will leave you breathless. For as long as human beings have walked this earth, cultures have spoken of moments like these, moments of initiation. The ancient Greeks called them kairos, sacred opportune time, when destiny aligns and ordinary life is pierced by the extraordinary. Indigenous traditions recognized similar turning points, times when a seeker was invited to pass through a hidden gate into a larger reality. That is what is unfolding for you now. This transmission is not merely information. It is a test, the final one before breakthrough. There exists a frequency so rare that less than 1% of people ever tune into it, yet it is the very frequency upon which transformation becomes possible. If you are listening, if these words are vibrating in your awareness, then you have already passed the early trials. The question now is whether you are prepared to step through the unseen portal that stands before you. Most people spend their lives searching for proof that their dreams are taking shape. They chase external confirmations, numbers in a bank account, recognition from a partner, success reflected in status or circumstance. But history, philosophy, and science whisper a different truth. The ancient mystics of Egypt spoke of the silence before birth. Alchemists described the nigredo, the dark void preceding transformation into gold. And today, quantum physicists call it the collapse point, the instant when infinite possibility converges into singular reality. Every delay you have endured, every closed door that left you discouraged, every stretch of emptiness that seemed unbearable. These were not punishments, they were preparations. The void is not absence, it is incubation. It is the hush before the orchestra begins to play, the stillness before a star ignites in the black of space. You have arrived at this very silence. In the language of modern science, you are standing at the threshold of what physicists might describe as an event horizon, a boundary beyond which nothing remains unchanged. In black holes, the event horizon is the point where all familiar laws dissolve, where what once seemed fixed is pulled into a dimension beyond comprehension. Spiritually, you stand at the event horizon of your own becoming. Think about this for a moment. In quantum mechanics, particles exist in superposition, occupying multiple states simultaneously until they are observed. They hover in uncertainty, embodying all potential realities until consciousness collapses them into form. What science has uncovered in the laboratory, mystics have long intuited in their meditations, that our desires, our dreams, our deepest longings live in that same suspended state, waiting for the instant of collapse, waiting for the gaze of consciousness strong enough to summon them into being. And now that instant draws near. Just as surely as the dawn follows the darkest hour, the moment approaches when what has been possibility will crystallize into actuality. The ancient Vedic texts spoke of it as the moment when Akasha, the subtle field of all potential, spills into the material world. You're living through that juncture right now, but here is where most seekers falter. Just as the gates of manifestation begin to swing open, fear creeps in. At the very brink of receiving, people grasp for evidence, refreshing inboxes, scrolling for signs, straining for reassurance. It is a human reflex, but it is also precisely backwards. This tightening, this panic, disturbs the delicate field that is already aligning on your behalf. The truth, the mystery whispered by sages, encoded in physics, and confirmed by countless lives transformed, is that the final step is not force but surrender. It is not about proving that you deserve what is arriving. It is about softening into the knowing that the same intelligence which moves galaxies and births stars is the very force carrying you forward. The seed does not demand progress reports to confirm it is becoming a tree. It does not question the soil or the rain. It yields to the hidden wisdom woven into its design, trusting the unseen processes that draw it upward toward the sun. In this same way, you are invited to trust the invisible order of your becoming. You are not merely listening to words. You are standing at the threshold of a new epoch in your personal history. Just as civilizations have risen on the tides of discovery, when electricity was harnessed, when printing presses carried words across continents, when explorers set sail across unknown seas, you too are poised to step into an uncharted dimension of yourself. The only question is whether you will recognize this moment for what it is: a summons to awaken, to release the grip of old certainties, and to allow yourself to be carried into the current of transformation. In the hidden theater of reality, your dreams are not idle fantasies. They are not distant maybes waiting for your worthiness. They exist already, vibrating in the field of infinite possibility, suspended in the quantum fabric, like particles in superposition. Just as electrons can spin in all directions until an observer collapses them into one, your desires live in all potential states simultaneously, until your consciousness calls them into form. This is not metaphor alone. It is physics meeting mysticism. In laboratories across the world, scientists have demonstrated that particles only choose a position once observed. For thousands of years, spiritual traditions taught something similar in less clinical terms, that what we focus upon with clarity and faith eventually crystallizes into lived experience. In truth, you are not so much creating your future as you are collapsing it from possibility into visibility. And here lies the paradox. The moment when the universe prepares to deliver what you have long envisioned is often the very moment people sabotage themselves. They panic at the threshold. Instead of relaxing into inevitability, they begin to clutch at control. They check their phones for messages, search for omens in their circumstances, ask for proof that it's really happening. Yet every time they do, they subtly send a message of doubt to the field. I don't yet believe. It is not unlike a fisherman who casts a line into deep waters. The fish is already tugging, yet in impatience, he reels the line back too quickly, disturbing the very process that was about to bring his catch ashore. The same is true with your desires. At the critical moment, the only skill required is trust. This is why the ancient mystics and the modern physicists converge on a single principle: surrender. Not surrender as in defeat, but surrender as in alignment. Consider nature itself. A seed buried in the earth does not demand progress updates. It does not peer through the soil to check whether the roots are forming. It yields to the intelligence that encoded its destiny from the beginning. It trusts the unseen forces of water, sunlight, and time to do what they were designed to do. The same force that guides the seed into a towering tree is guiding you. It is the same intelligence that spins galaxies and choreographs the invisible dance of subatomic particles. To resist it is to exhaust yourself. To yield to it is to awaken into harmony with reality itself. And yet, surrender is the most difficult instruction to follow. We are creatures trained to control, to grip tighter when we sense the tide rising. But the paradox is unavoidable. Manifestation flows when we stop insisting that it appear in a certain way. Release is not abandonment. Release is recognition that the universe is infinitely more creative than our limited imagination. History is filled with examples of this truth. Columbus never set out to discover a new continent. He surrendered to the sea with a vision, and the ocean delivered more than he imagined. Penicillin was discovered not by rigid planning, but by an accident, an allowance of nature's intelligence to reveal itself. The greatest breakthroughs often arrive, not when we force them, but when we create space for them to emerge. This is the very frequency you are being invited to embody now. To step into that quiet, paradoxical wisdom that says, I no longer need to chase, because what belongs to me is already finding its way. And here lies the cosmic irony. Everything you have been seeking has been seeking you with equal force. The mystic poet Rumi spoke of it centuries ago. What you seek is seeking you. While you wondered whether your prayers were heard, the universe was weaving a tapestry of synchronicities behind the veil, arranging encounters, opportunities, and alignments so precise that you will later look back in astonishment at the perfection of their timing. It was never late. It was never absent. It was calibrated, down to the breath, for your evolution. The test of this moment is not whether you can act harder, but whether you can release deeper. Can you soften the white-knuckled grip on how your desires must appear, and allow the intelligence of the cosmos to deliver something greater than your narrow vision could contain? The sages would call this wu-wei, effortless action. The physicists might call it the natural collapse of a probability wave. The mystics call it grace. Whatever name we give, the essence is the same. When we stop trying to orchestrate reality, reality orchestrates itself into harmony with us. In the strange and beautiful world of quantum physics, there is a phenomenon known as entanglement. When two particles become entangled, they remain connected regardless of distance. Change the state of one, and the other responds instantly, even if separated by galaxies. Physicists cannot fully explain why, but the implication is staggering. Connection transcends space and time. Now, imagine this not as abstract theory, but as the living fabric of your own life. Your consciousness is already entangled with your desires. The moment you truly gave birth to a vision, whether it was for love, abundance, healing, or freedom, it was as if a particle split in two. One remained here, with you in the present, while the other began vibrating in the quantum field of your future. The two are inseparably linked. What entangles them more tightly is not effort, but energy. And here lies the secret most people miss. There is a world of difference between wanting energy and receiving energy. Wanting energy whispers lack. It arises from the assumption that what you long for is not yet yours. It broadcasts restlessness, impatience, and the static of grasping. In physics, this energy acts like a wave, out of phase with its counterpart, pushing away instead of drawing near. Receiving energy, however, is abundance embodied. It does not plead, it welcomes. It radiates confidence, as though the delivery has already been signed for and is on its way. Receiving energy draws toward you the experiences entangled with your desire, just as surely as the moon draws the tides. Think of the radio. A song is already being broadcast at a certain frequency, but you will not hear it until you tune the dial. Wanting energy is the static between stations. Receiving energy is the precise tuning that lets the music pour through. This is why the ancient sages of every culture spoke of alignment rather than striving. The Taoist masters urged harmony with the Tao. The Buddhists spoke of non-attachment. The Christian mystics of surrender to divine providence. They knew what quantum physics now confirms. The frequency you broadcast determines the reality that responds. And yet, just as you approach the threshold of receiving, resistance appears. It rises like a guardian at the gate, whispering doubts, rehearsing disappointments, insisting that your case is different. This resistance is not your enemy. It is the final test. In myth, every hero must confront a dragon before entering the treasure chamber. In life, the dragon takes the form of disbelief, fear, or the echo of old wounds. You have been building strength for this moment. Every disappointment, every trial where you chose to keep believing, has forged a spiritual musculature that now allows you to stand firm at the gate. Resistance is simply asking, will you collapse back into the energy of wanting, or will you step forward as the one who receives? And here is the paradox. The way through is not to fight resistance, but to soften around it, to look it in the eye and recognize it for what it is, a shadow cast by the brightness of your imminent becoming. In doing so, you step out of the old role of seeker and into the identity of receiver. When you broadcast readiness instead of lack, the quantum entanglement between your present and future self vibrates with clarity. The invisible threads grow taut, drawing timelines together, collapsing the space between who you have been and who you are becoming. It is in this moment that surrender becomes power and receiving becomes destiny. Behind the curtain of what you can see, life is already reorganizing itself on your behalf. While you wonder if anything is moving, the field of possibility is in motion, shuffling people into place, ripening opportunities, gathering resources. It is a coordination so intricate that no human mind could design it, yet it unfolds with mathematical precision. What appears still on the surface is often where the greatest activity is occurring. Think of pregnancy. For months, nothing is visible to the eye, yet within the hidden sanctuary of the womb, an entire universe of transformation is taking place. Bones are forming, a heart begins to beat, consciousness itself prepares to enter the world. What looks like emptiness is in truth incubation. So it is with your desires. The pause before manifestation is not absence, it is gestation. This is why many give up too soon. They mistake the sacred pause for failure, not realizing they stand on the very brink of arrival. But if you hold your alignment, you will witness the moment when the invisible ripens into the inevitable. Consider synchronicities, the so-called coincidences that appear when you are tuned to the right frequency. You think of a friend, and they call you that day. A book falls from a shelf at the exact chapter you needed. An encounter at the cafe alters the course of your life. These are not accidents. They are the universe signaling that the field is aligning, and the science supports it. Everything you feel emits a measurable vibration. Gratitude vibrates around 540 hertz, love near 528 hertz, joy around 540 hertz. Meanwhile, fear resonates closer to 100 hertz and doubt around 125 hertz. Your thoughts and emotions broadcast frequencies, just as a tuning fork sets air into vibration. When those frequencies harmonize with your desires, you create what physicists call constructive interference. Waves amplifying one another until the signal grows undeniable. This is not wishful thinking. It is the physics of resonance. Just as soldiers marching in step can collapse a bridge through synchronized vibrations, so can your coherent alignment collapse possibility into form. Every moment of gratitude, every act of love strengthens the broadcast. Every wave of fear or doubt scatters it, introducing static into the signal. The ancients knew this without instruments. Sufi mystics spun in dance to raise their frequency. Gregorian monks chanted in tones that resonate with the body's natural harmonics. Shamans beat drums in rhythm with the earth's heartbeat to tune consciousness to deeper states. They were not engaging in ritual for ritual's sake. They were mastering vibration, You are invited to do the same. You need not chant in cathedrals or whirl in deserts, though you may if called. It is enough to become mindful of the energy you choose to amplify. Each thought, each feeling, is a vote for the frequency you inhabit. And the frequency you inhabit is the station upon which your desires are already broadcasting. When you understand this, you stop treating gratitude as a strategy to get more and begin feeling it as recognition of what already flows toward you. You stop fearing the pause and begin honoring it as the universe's breath before exhalation. You stop doubting coincidences and begin reading them as the precise language of the field. This is the architecture of synchronicity. This is how frequencies become power. Resistance has a cunning way of disguising itself. Sometimes it looks like sudden busyness, an avalanche of small distractions that steal your focus. Other times, it takes the form of relationships that quietly drain your energy, or opportunities that tempt you to settle for less than what you've been calling in. These are not punishments. They are remnants of an old reality, making one final attempt to keep you tethered to the patterns you are outgrowing. The temptation is to fight, to struggle, to push harder in the hope that sheer effort will carry you through. But forcing creates friction. You can feel it in your body, tightness in your chest, heaviness in your shoulders, a fatigue that no amount of rest seems to cure. Forced action arises from impatience and fear, and its fruit is stress, burnout, and disappointment. Inspired action is different. It flows like water finding its way downstream. It arrives as intuition, as a sudden knowing of the next step. It feels light, energizing, even joyful. It is the difference between swimming against the current and being carried by the river itself. When you are aligned, conversations unfold naturally, doors open unexpectedly, and opportunities seem to land in your lap without effort. This is not laziness, it is resonance. Every spiritual tradition has understood this principle in its own language. The Taoists called it Wu Wei, action in harmony with the flow of the Tao. Indigenous shamans spoke of following the signs of the land. Even in Christian mysticism, the idea of grace reflects this same truth, that there is a rhythm to creation, and when we align with it, life unfolds with elegance rather than strain. But alignment requires trust and timing. Seeds do not sprout the instant they are planted. Babies are not born the day after conception. The great oak tree once rested within the acorn, but it required years of patient growth before its branches could stretch toward the heavens. Your desires are no different. They follow divine timing, not human deadlines. When delays come, they are not denials. They are incubations. They are the unseen orchestration of conditions so perfect that once revealed, you will marvel at their precision. To rush is to disturb the symphony. To trust is to let the music build to its crescendo. So when synchronicities nudge you forward, when the right person enters your life, when a chance remark sparks inspiration, when an unplanned encounter opens a door, follow them. That is inspired action. It does not exhaust, it expands. It does not constrict, it liberates. Think of history's great breakthroughs. Archimedes discovered a principle not while straining in a workshop, but while bathing in stillness, so relaxed that insight could slip in. Newton's laws of gravity were born not through calculation alone, but when an apple fell, unplanned, and he was present enough to notice. Mozart's symphonies were not manufactured through forced effort. He described them as arriving fully formed, as though dictated from some invisible source. Your life, too, has this source. When you release the need to force and instead cultivate the openness to listen, inspiration flows through you as naturally as breath. This is the way of miracle frequency. action that is effortless because it is in partnership with the intelligence that animates all things. So the question becomes not, what must I make happen, but what wants to happen through me? In that shift, you step out of struggle and into synchronicity. You cease to push against the current of life and instead allow yourself to be carried into exactly where you are meant to be. Here is the pivot that changes everything. Manifestation is not about waiting for proof. It is about choosing a new identity now, in this breath, before any external evidence appears. Most people cling to their current self-image, trying to pull their dreams down into the limitations of who they already believe themselves to be. But true transformation asks for the opposite. You are being invited to rise to the level of your dreams, to inhabit the identity that naturally belongs in the reality you desire. This is why embodiment matters. The body is not a bystander in your evolution. It is the stage upon which your identity performs itself into being. Walk as though you are already the one who receives. Sit with the quiet confidence of someone who knows the universe supports them. Breathe like one who trusts the unseen orchestration of life. Every gesture, every breath becomes a declaration to the quantum field. This is who I am now. Throughout history, initiatory traditions understood this principle. The ancient Egyptians clothed initiates in garments of the gods so they could feel divinity in their skin. Native shamans donned the masks of animal spirits, embodying their strength, agility, or vision. Even modern rituals like graduation robes or wedding vows are remnants of this timeless truth that stepping into a new role requires embodying it before the outer world reflects it back. As you embody the self who already receives, you strengthen the quantum entanglement between your present reality and your expanded reality. Each choice, whether to react from old fears or respond from new faith, is a vote cast for which timeline you inhabit. Slowly, the gravitational pull of the old self weakens, and the expanded self becomes your natural orbit. But this transformation is not only personal, it is collective. Each time you step into receiving energy, instead of wanting energy, you contribute to a wider field of consciousness. The psychologist Carl Jung once described this as the collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of human experience. More recently, biologist Rupert Sheldrake proposed the idea of morphic fields, suggesting that once enough individuals embody a pattern, it becomes easier for others to do the same. Your breakthrough is not just for you. It is a beacon for those around you, a ripple in the field that makes it easier for others to awaken. When one person learns to walk with trust, others nearby find it easier to do the same. This is why your personal shift is an act of service. It is why your courage matters not just to you, but to the evolution of the whole. And here, the narrative widens even further. The teachings you are receiving now are but a glimpse of a larger framework, what some call the 9 master frequencies of consciousness. These frequencies are the archetypal notes upon which reality composes itself. Today, we touch only the fundamentals, but deeper practices exist to move from unconscious manifestation to becoming the broadcast itself, to shift from seeker into source, from asking into being. You stand at the frontier of this evolution. Humanity as a whole is learning, faltering, and rising into the awareness that we are co-creators, not passive passengers. Your transformation is a thread in the greater tapestry of awakening, a living contribution to the collective remembering of who we truly are. There is a phenomenon in physics known as quantum tunneling, where particles pass through barriers that should, by all logic, be impossible to cross. To classical science, these walls are unbreakable. Yet in the quantum domain, particles slip through as if the barrier were never there. Your consciousness is about to undergo its own version of quantum tunneling. Patterns that once seemed immovable, fears that clung to you for decades, beliefs that shaped your entire reality, are thinning. One day they appear solid, and the next they dissolve as though they never existed. To you, it may feel sudden, miraculous, but in truth, it is the culmination of years of unseen preparation. You are stepping into the parallel version of yourself, where those chains never bound you at all. This is why breakthroughs often arrive like lightning. They are not gradual improvements. They are leaps across dimensions of self, where the old reality no longer applies. The abundant version of you, the fearless version, the luminous version, they all exist now, as vividly in the field of possibility as the one who doubts. The act of transformation is not about becoming. It is about remembering which version you wish to embody. And the remembering is already happening. Have you noticed moments of sudden clarity, flashes of knowing, insights that feel as though they are arriving from a wiser future self? That is exactly what is occurring. The expanded version of you, the one living in harmony with your desires, is sending signals backward through the field, guiding you, nudging you, whispering, "This way." Every intuition, every coincidence, every mysterious urge to act is the hand of your future self pulling you forward. In science, there is a phenomenon called phase locking, where two oscillating systems begin to synchronize their rhythms. Pendulum clocks on the same wall will eventually swing in harmony. Fireflies in a meadow pulse their light in unison. Right now, your present self is phase locking with your expanded self. The frequencies are beginning to synchronize, and with synchronization comes transformation. At the critical threshold, systems undergo what physicists call a phase transition. Water suddenly freezes into ice. A caterpillar becomes a butterfly. In that instant, new properties emerge that were invisible before. You are approaching your own phase transition, where the identity you have carried dissolves and a new self takes its place. With it, abilities awaken, relationships shift, opportunities reveal themselves, and resources flow effortlessly into alignment. Not because you forced them, but because you became the version of yourself for whom they are natural. This is the mystery of emergence. Complex systems, when pressed to their edge, reorganize into higher orders. It is why chaos has been stirring in your life. The disorder is not collapse, it is reassembly. Just as stars are born in the violent collapse of nebulae, so too your new life emerges from the dismantling of the old. But to cross this threshold, coherence must be protected. Physicists speak of decoherence, the collapse of quantum possibility into limited outcomes when a system is disturbed. In your life, decoherence happens when you demand proof too soon, checking your bank balance for signs of abundance, scanning your environment for evidence of change. Each time you do, you collapse the infinite possibilities into the narrow lens of what already is. The great mystics knew this trial well. They called it the dark night of the soul, the void where nothing appears to move, but where everything essential is actually taking shape. To remain steady in that void is the hardest and most sacred task. For the void is not emptiness, it is the quantum vacuum, the fertile field from which universes are born. It teems with virtual particles with zero-point energy, with invisible sparks of creation flickering in and out of existence. Your desires already exist as these subtle flickers, too brief for the eye to catch, yet undeniable in their effects. Every synchronicity, every ripple of joy, every small door opening is proof that your future is brushing against your present, asking to be let in. And as you allow, the invisible begins to stabilize. The flickers become steady flames. What once seemed impossible begins to feel inevitable. This is not the future arriving from afar. It is reality reorganizing itself in your favor, right here, right now. In this moment, your nervous system is rewiring. Neuroscientists call it neuroplasticity, but the mystics would call it remembrance. The concepts that resonate as truth are not new to you. They are ancient songs your soul already knows, now breaking through the static of forgetfulness. That is why they feel like recognition rather than instruction. You are not learning, you're remembering. And so the invitation is simple, yet infinite in its scope. Trust what is unfolding. Trust the timing, the chaos, the synchronicities, the silence. Trust the signals of your future self. Trust the intelligence that spins galaxies and beats your heart. You are not walking into the unknown. You are walking home, into a version of yourself that has been waiting patiently, calling to you across time. Welcome to your quantum leap.